Hey, so with snow flying in Pittsburgh, I decided it was time to do a kind of end of season cycling update, and figured I'd do a video update instead of just a regular write up. Hopefully, it'll be faster, and hopefully, it'll be a little more interesting. I'll have some images to share as well. But the season ended pretty abruptly for me. In August, I tweaked my Achilles, and then had a week of travel, had a cold. My asthma's kicking up, which is seasonal. So basically, season's pretty much wrapped up, but it was an amazing season, 2019, especially when you compare it to 2018. Set several records, one of the more important of which was just total mileage, approaching 6,000 miles for the year, which was split about 60-40 between outdoor miles and biking on the indoor trainer on Zwift. And then also set a record number of century rides, 100 miles plus. Thanks to the early start I got by riding on Zwift, it really gave me a leg up. And really, my first century of the ride was an indoor one done on Zwift. The miles aren't entirely comparable, but they simulate it as well as they can. And I wanted to prove that I was ready for a century ride because the following week, one of my very first outdoor rides was a 200K brevet with the Pittsburgh Randonneurs, which was my longest ride in 2 years. So that's really quite an achievement to prove that riding Zwift and the indoor trainer could prepare you for a 125-mile ride. Took a little break after that. In May, I did a solo ride to a place that I always wanted to go to, a road next to the West Virginia border called Shades of Death Road, which is a fitting name considering it's very loose gravel and was a pain in the ass to ride on, but I always wanted to go there and visit the Shades of Death. And then another month passed. In June, we had the 2-day Escape to the Lake MS ride, which goes up. The first day is a full century, and then the second day we end on the shores of Lake Erie. It was a wonderful ride, wonderful weather, just a great experience. Followed by, at the end of the month, the Pittsburgh Major Taylor Cycling Group's 3-state ride, which starts in Pittsburgh and goes through West Virginia and Ohio. Some changes to the route this year that made it particularly pleasant, and again, great weather. In July, I drove to Akron for the Akron Bike Club's absolutely beautiful country ride, which again is another century. There were changes to this route as well. Not quite as wonderful because they eliminated the free ice cream rest stop. So that was a disappointment. That was in July. As August started, I started a string of 6 centuries in 6 weeks, starting with another 200K with the Pittsburgh Randonneurs. And that was obviously my second 125-mile ride of the year, and really had no problems with that considering the level of fitness I was at that point. A week later, I took one of my regular long rides and extended it up through Saxonburg and Butler to make a complete century, just to prove that I was in, as you can see, absolutely brilliant physical health. The next week was the Mon Valley Century, the Monongahela Valley Century, which was run for the first time in 3 years. A great event that I really enjoy, easy to get to, and a lot of fun. Then the following week, my internet was out for 48 hours. So what are you going to do? You go out on the bike and ride a solo century. This one, I kind of was a flat one where I explored Pittsburgh's four rivers. And shortly after that, in August, was when I injured my Achilles. But despite that, I decided that I would go ahead and try to do the Pedal Pittsburgh, Populaire City Tour ride, which is a metric century, but I extended that to 100 miles by riding up and down the Great Allegheny Passage bike path to McKeesport and back. And finally, Labor Day weekend was up in Mercer County for the Pedal to the Lakes ride, which is always an awesome ride. Stunning weather for all of these rides, which was in stark contrast to 2018, which was the rainiest year in Pittsburgh's history. That ended my 6 centuries in 6 weeks. A couple weeks later, I drove up to Michigan to the Leelanau Harvest Tour to meet up with 16 people that I only knew online from Zwift. People came from all over. There were local Michiganers, there were people from Pennsylvania, people from Massachusetts, people from Oklahoma, and one of the ride leaders even came from Norway to visit. So that was a highlight of the year. And so that completes my 13 centuries for 2019, which is a record smasher as well. My previous max number of centuries per year was 9. So going from 9 to 13 centuries per year. And the final record I want to talk about is my fitness level. The chart here you see shows my fitness level on each of the seasons from 2011 through current moment. And there's basically 2 things that you want to look at here. The first is how bad 2018 was versus how good 2019 was. I actually spent 6 months at a higher level of fitness in 2019 than the max fitness I'd reached in all of 2018. And then the other thing to look at is the little gray line around 84 level of fitness, which represents the peak fitness I've ever had previously in 2016 and 2017. Obviously, I exceeded that in 2019 and spent 4.5 months at a higher fitness level than I had ever reached in those years. So that's a banner year as far as my fitness level goes as well. The final chart is just this year's fitness. You can see I started the year at a high level of fitness. The gray line that you see underneath the chart is my average annual fitness level. So what you see with the red line is I started at a way higher level of fitness than in previous years. The green dots are my major events, my centuries, and you can see, my fitness just rose until from January through May, and then pretty much stayed at a very high level from May through the middle of September, my last event. At that point, I decided, you can see it tails off very abruptly, which was, as I referred to earlier, when I tweaked my Achilles, when I had a week of travel, caught a cold, came back. That provided a well-deserved rest after such a record season, and also some healing, obviously. But my fitness level plummeted, and as you can see toward the end of the chart, I'm now trying to maintain a fitness level around the 50 level throughout the winter as I transition to working indoors on Zwift again. But generally, the high-level overview is, after just a very lackluster and rain-soaked 2018, 2019 has been a record year with record mileage, record number of centuries, record fitness level, and some really awesome events, and just ridiculously, I would call it record weather, although it's not technically a record, but very, very happy with how 2019's gone, and looking forward to setting the base level for the beginning of 2020. Thanks for listening.